Professor, how are you, young fella?
Very good. How are you doing, Mitch?
I always say it, and I mean it. I really do. It's been too long. We
Yes,
should like schedule this on a monthly cadence or something.
we should. That's a good idea.
And I like how you mentioned we were talking about you as the author that you are. I just happen to have my Willie shirt on. Did you know that he's an author as well?
Is that right?
Willie is. I don't know if he knows it, but he's written as many as 14 books.
Holy cow.
I bring it up as a cheap segue to let you know that all three of us are authors because old Mitch even wrote a book. Some people will call it a pamphlet. I'm calling it a book. But but if you want, if anybody's listening, they want to get hold of it. Number one, it's only $7.99 for the hard copy and $5 for the ebook version. But it's at
Nice.
mitchwonders.com. You hit the shop tab, and that'll take you to the second page. And there's two buttons. You can enter the merch store, or you can enter the location to buy the book. But also, if you page down a little bit, if you look on the second, there's only two pages on there, but the second page kind of shows everything that we have for sale. A big, a snippet of some of the stuff we have for sale in there. But there is a shirt on there with a special design for this shirt alone. Every penny of proceeds goes to support the National Veterans Foundation. So
Wow.
if you're interested, if you want to help, it's in there. And I'd like to thank you, by the way. I'll stop rambling a second because I love this time frame you suggested because it allows me to, uh,
Yes. There we go.
because ordinarily I wouldn't do this in the morning episodes, but
No.
and I'll give you last heads up, by the way. In Wyoming and Montana up there, the
Mhm.
cowboys call these yellow jackets. But down
Really?
here, yeah, I got schooled. The first time I tried at the Freiheit country store, she's like, we call these yellow bellies. Okay, okay. I'm in. The yellow belly to you, man.
Holy cow. Yeah, I will testify that this is not being recorded in the morning. So Mitch doesn't
Thanks.
have a problem. He doesn't have a problem. He's just a normal afternoon drinker.
He's got problems, but it ain't that.
So of all the problems, that's not even the top 10.
Well, there you go. See, now that's another cheap segue because the one of the things I was wondering, like one thing that might be a problem is I heard, I swear to God, I think it was like Theo Vaughn talking to Mike Rowe. I'm not dropping names, but
Two of my favorite people.
I know the Mike Rowe podcast is actually damn good.
Yeah.
Because he did a haunted one like last year for Halloween. It's fantastic. There's like three. It's great. But he had Theo Vaughn on there and he was making him laugh and like they said something and but Theo was like, yeah, that'll be funny because that would be like the next cause for the end of the world. And I started thinking, it's because we did recently on episode 165, we talked about how AI is, in my opinion, eating its own tail. Now, if you want to know what that means, feel free to listen to it. But
Yes.
uh, but you hear all this talk all the time about AI is going to be the end of the world. It's going to be this and that and and I'm so old. I started thinking, well, what? Because I remember like when the space race could lead to the end of the end of the world, and that was back in from the late 50s to the early 70s.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, like, what's the biggest concern of the world now? Because we made so many advancements in the last 50 years. Is there still a new cause for the end of the world?
Good topic.
I know, right?
Mhm.
That's so lighthearted. Because naturally it started me thinking about not naturally, I guess, but the Cuban Missile Crisis as well. And that,
Okay.
and I swear I can recall that, but I was only like 2.5 months old, so I don't know if they were they were still talking about it for many years after. But the space race, professor, correct me if I'm wrong. They were like one of the things they were worried about was like whoever wins the race to space is going to control the skies, and therefore the end of the world. And by golly, the next world war is just the next step. It's like it's going to be the
Right.
end of the world.
Yeah, well, I love the when you read the history of that, our guys, when they're first exploding the first atomic bomb, they all think there's a small chance it might consume the atmosphere completely and kill you. Just the idea that how desperate are we to beat these Nazis and Japanese? Desperate enough that we might incinerate our entire world. So they're just the idea of that you're getting ready to drop it, knowing that this could be the end of everything, and no one in the
Yeah,
room is, how about we just invade with really big ships full of people or something instead
yeah,
of that? But
little
no.
guarantees. 'Cause I remember on the Oppenheimer movie, because my youngest son taught me or convinced me to watch a 3 hour movie.
Mm.
Uh, but they mentioned that, and I think he's like, "How sure are you with this?" He's like 99.9. They're like, "Well, what's the point?" And the point one was just like you were saying.
Yes, that's amazing.
But it's because I did my research and I've got a research assistant, and we came up with the top five that are still out there, and one of them is going to be it's going to be like, oh, come on, really? But I thought we'd talk about it
Good.
because they still talk about like, and we'll give the rankings, but these are the top five most, and we'll do a quick listing of which one's number one and two later. But
Cool.
number one that came up when we were doing our research is nuclear war. Still a big
Yeah.
deal. Well, and it's very unfortunate because you think we would have made a lot of progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thought the things that scare me about it, I remember I read a lot of military history and stuff. I remember reading
Yeah,
somebody,
me
I don't
too.
know if it was Victor Davis Hanston or the guy from England, I'm blanking on John Keegan. There's a bunch of them, but one of them said that no weapon system's ever been invented that wasn't used. That a lot of people, when new
Oh,
weapons got
good.
invented, there was social pressure not to do it. And so they even talked about like at Agincourt, the English had the longbow. And a lot of people thought that's an unmanly weapon because you can kill somebody from 700
Yeah,
yards away or whatever. And so especially knights and stuff, especially the class system was they were thinking that is not some peasant jackass with the longbow can take out one of the cream of the French nobility or something with his armor and everything. So they thought that's not going to be, manly, gentlemen are not going to use that. And then they had, chemical warfare, the old Greek fire and the Byzantine Empire days and stuff. So he just pointed out that how could we not, at the beginning of the Cold War, at the beginning after the first nukes, we're thinking, well, someone's going to use these again. We're
yeah,
not the to just stop it. So far, we've been really lucky, that no one has used it. But the scariest thing to me is two things. One is more and more people get them. The odds are that
yeah.
somebody's getting
There's,
enough.
there's more players at the table now.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in the notes that it's easy enough if you get a couple real big countries that seem fairly stable. That's one thing, but I mean, I guess Pakistan is the one that people worry about. They have them, and they're the only Muslim country that has them. And we won't talk
Oh,
politics here or anything, but that's
no.
just kind of a so they've had it for a while and haven't done anything. And of course, North Korea is the other one that's
Oh yeah,
out.
always. He always feels the need to make the news. But it's like you say though, there could be like two major countries. Let's face it, Russia and US. That could
Yeah,
be pretty common sense about it. But we had
yeah,
the START treaty. I think the START treaty started in 2011, and it's already because I think the limitations were like 1,500 like nuclear weapons and
mhm,
700 whatever. But the U.S. keeps thousands now. They know,
yeah,
and China, India, everybody else they're building up. So it's like I'm pretty sure Russia's like, what the hell with it. I'm out.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so
Well, the
there's no
second,
more. Well, I mean, because COVID also stopped in 2020, the inspections that are part of that treaty
right,
stopped. And since then, it's just been politics stopping them from starting again.
right,
So we're already 5 years into no inspection. So
yeah.
best of luck. Now, yeah, so I can see why it's a concern.
Well, and it is the scariest thing. The second one, and the most scary to me, is that mutually assured destruction deters most sane people. Countries that are
Yeah.
even dictators, they still want to be. They've got a dacha and they've got the best hookers and the best vodka and whatever else. They do not want to risk their and their family is all rich and corrupt and they don't want to risk their lives on something. But if you get some jihadi in there that's like I'm going to paradise or whatever, some kind of nut for any
Yeah,
reason.
I agree.
It's how do you deter people? Good, the world's blowing up, then Allah or Jesus will come back or whatever's going to happen. That's
Hey, real quick, you mentioned something briefly, hoping to get away with it, but Russia's known for the best hookers.
I'm thinking the best hookers in the Eastern Bloc belong to
Oh,
Putin or whoever's the
okay.
top of that thing. So
Okay. Good. Good.
I don't, hey, America's still number one, I'm assuming. I have no
No,
idea. Just
no
for the
comment.
record, I've been
No
happily
comment.
married for 30 something years. I have no idea. It's a
Hey, and I've been happily divorced for over 25, and I still have no idea. So just so you know, mister. But like you say, it's like the it could be, just some knucklehead or somebody.
yeah.
And it's not gonna be just like one, there's gonna be a retaliation. So there'll be a few. But then it could bring on, the overly dark, well, I guess it's gonna be literally nuclear
Yes.
winter. And
Yes.
that's very realistic. It's like, just that'd be such there's been a recent Stephen King movie, and as Stephen King is, for some reason it was broken into two parts, and the first part was just how the Earth will die slowly because once but then it goes dark and people start getting cold and there's no access to food
Right.
and there's no sunlight and the global temperatures drop and
Yeah.
it's like, holy shit, that sounds terrible. That sounds terrible.
That does make you look at the giant explosion as being the more merciful of the two. Who wants to
Yeah.
hang on for a year and a half of just scavenging
Ooh.
and starving and just take us out with one big. Could somebody not have more bombs so we could get it over with right away instead of
And in the end, as we go through the top five, we'll give you how you can prevent or prepare for it too. So we're not being cold-hearted, but so that was kind of cheery. So what about number two? Uh, we kind of touched on it, climate collapse. But climate collapse, I think, is more plausible and near term than anybody thinks.
Mhm. Yeah, I
And I'm
don't.
trying.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I'm trying to do my best, but I don't know that the little nipshit stuff that I try to do is. I mean, I'm still going to do it. Is going to help at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for some reason to me, this one is not as scary to me for a couple reasons. One is it is more gradual. And so it feels like, and that might not be, might be the frog in the boiling water thing or something, you just,
That's what it feels like. That's what
there's
it
still not
feels
going
like.
to be, but at least it's not like the nuclear bomb or some of the other topics you've got on here where we've got very little time to do anything, the asteroid thing or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But I take a little bit of heart because, first of all, at least in the first world, people adapt really well, and so we've had shortages and problems on climate kind of things. We've adapted really well too. So I think about things like the chlorofluorocarbons that were messing up we're going to get rid of the ozone layer and acid rain and some of these
Yeah,
pollution
that's
sensors
true.
and stuff. And we've dodged a lot of those bullets. I mean, California, now LA used to be there's smog alerts and stuff, and now that's much better because we started putting catalytic converters and stuff. So a lot of that stuff I feel like we could will adapt. And if as long as it doesn't speed up, and that's the nightmare scenario, if it turns out that there's some kind of a doubling thing that happens and then it
Yeah,
happens too fast. But when they're talking 50, 60, 100 years out, we've gotten so much cleaner. 100 years ago, man, we were burning big things of coal smoke coming out in every city and stuff. People are getting
yes.
black lung just from living, not just my Simpson ancestors in coal mines or whatever, but like people would just so I think we've gotten so much better about so much of that this one, it is scary, but it feels like it's less scary to me than a couple of the other ones on the list, at least.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, and it also seems like it's dangerous, but also in some ways an opportunity, and an opportunities that I think could profit, help the world, create jobs, things like that we need to how we're attacking or how we're doing things differently we're going to need people to do that, and
Right.
and we still got people chiming in like uh and I apologize because I put the references here the IPCC's climate change. Like either one of us is going to know what the IPCC is, but it's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is a United Nations thing. But uh, but you're right though; they're predicting late 21st century, which is if you want to be fatalistic about it, 25 years from now, so
Right.
2050 But like you say, it'll keep pushing out. I think that you're going to see it kind of push out or be less of a concern. Like you saw, I tentatively titled this with a whimper, and I'm sure you're familiar with that's a T.S. Eliot quote that
Yeah.
uh, that he came up with that, and he stated, I think I'm going to get this wrong probably, the world will die not with a bang but with a whimper, and he
Mm.
came up with that in the 20s because he was worried about the technology then. So he
Yeah.
was he was worried about radio, he was worried about electricity and cars. So it's almost laughable because I know he was also worried about this. I'm just guessing
Mm.
women's suffrage because that's it. I think it was the same time frame. But
That also involves a lot of whimpering on our part, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly.
Boom.
Well, again, no, again, we brought it up like way back when, but in our defense, women's suffrage was delayed by 1 year because it was voted down by women.
Yes,
That's a,
God
that's a
bless those
fact.
women, those
Yeah, that's a
far-sighted
fact.
women.
Okay, let's get out of that. Let's get out.
Yes, steer away from the
Let's talk about something more pleasant. How about the next global pandemic, round two?
That's great. It's very pleasant. We're
Well,
just
yeah, I tried to warn you it wouldn't be pleasant, but
yeah,
interesting because
yeah.
as I was putting together these notes, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk to the professor about these. But COVID was they say a rehearsal. And I mean, I'm going to jump right down to it because I'm sure your first thought was, well, it escaped from a lab. So, I mean, that's because that's people just, pardon my vernacular, but dicking around, and they did something wrong. But the truth is, we don't know. We don't know for sure. I
Right.
mean, like John Daly was saying, not the golfer, the Daily Show guy. The lab was called COVID. He's like, where do you think it came from? But the
Wuhan.
point
Yeah.
point is, it wasn't a fluke, because diseases jump from animals to humans all the time.
Right. Right. And even I am one. I am pretty sure that it came from I read some of the epidemiologists writing about it and saying the spike proteins and blah blah blah, and then it goes over my head. But basically they seem to be, it seems like the smart money is definitely on it was a lab, but that's not that comforting because every country in the world is doing chemical weapons research and stuff like that. So it's not like, it's not like the fact that it was in a lab, well, we'll never do that again. That's not true anyway. So whether it's a jump species or somebody right now is in a lab coming up with, is juicing the Black Plague or whatever.
Something. Yeah,
Still
it's
scary.
like, well, it was that, like, I don't forget who said, prior to all this, like there was like people bringing animals from other countries to the United States with like rabies or diseases or whatnot, and they were able to track down. Let's just say it was like a gerbil that somebody brought back from across the ocean, and it was like created and transmitted disease to some
Yeah.
guy in Wisconsin. So we could track that down, but
Yeah.
it was creepy because I don't even remember the name of the book. I should, because I go through a lot of audiobooks, but I remember I
Mm.
was walking, I was halfway through this audiobook, and the whole COVID thing broke. So that's, I could,
Oh,
at the time you could still walk, but
yeah.
it was based upon the premise of a disease being transmitted by bats, and people were eating the bats like for foods.
Right.
So
Right.
that's not, but the resistance builds up to, these antibiotic. Number one, I don't know about you, but weren't you impressed with how quickly we did come up with an antibiotic?
Yeah, the vaccines were, well, everybody was talking about, and of course it didn't help. And this is not a politics broadcast, but our podcast, but it didn't help that Trump is always so bloviating. But we will find a cure in like 4 months or so. We'll find a vaccine by the end of the year. And damned if he didn't do it. We didn't. So it's like, well, the one time we can trust is bloviating. It actually turns out to be. I'm not anti-Trump guy in general, but you know that kind of made it nobody believed it extra because he's always saying stuff like that. And then it turned
Yeah.
out we got it that quickly. And everybody was saying it takes at least 2 or 3 years to get something to the point of human testing, even or something. Um, but
Money,
yeah,
money could help.
yeah, well, and desperation, if you're, yes, that's the case. If you have a new, erectile dysfunction or whatever,
I was
that's,
wondering where you're going to go. I thought you were going to go weight loss, but go ahead.
but I mean, you're not going to throw all caution to the wind because we must have boners now, immediately or something.
Hey,
So,
hey,
if it takes,
pull off the boner docs. We need their help on this thing here. And they're smiling, they're happy. They're like, all right, whatever.
but if
But
it takes 2 or 3 years to come up with that, that's not the end of the world. But when it's like this pandemic that at the beginning we thought this might be killing, you know, hundreds of millions of people or whatever before we realized how it was really concentrated to people that are already in trouble anyway. But at that point, why not, throw everything against it and speed everything up
yeah,
and now we know why. There's a couple little those myocarditis and some other things that kind of went wrong with it can give you some appreciation for going slower. But um, yeah, you in the notes I saw you had a couple things that really scare me about this one. The things that scare me the
I
most.
apologize. I know you're having
Yes.
sleep issues already, but
Yes, now there's it's no but one of them was this, like you mentioned, with air flight. I mean, it used to always be these were spread. I know the Black Plague got to Europe on boats from I think it was Asia, but they had, a certain the rats had a certain kind of malaria or whatever had made it there because they were a great international shipping center and stuff. And so
yeah.
that's you already had that. So it's not like that's a real new thing, but the idea now you can fly from
Oh yeah.
you can be
Yeah.
infected in one place and maybe do a business trip where you hop from, Hong Kong to
It's
to the
to New
States
York,
to
and then you
Europe
gotta
and
you gotta go
back.
over to LA, and congrats, you're the host.
Yeah.
And it's,
You
but
spread it on 3 continents in 3 days. It's like,
that's how, like, back in the day, you get like, diseases called the Spanish flu because the Spaniards had to bring it over on ships. But that's a very good point. But one of the scariest ones that again, I'm scaring myself with my own notes, was HIV and AIDS. That was horrible. I mean, I just got the tingles talking about that. But
Well, in fact,
it's
this is a my wife worked on that. She was got her master's in health and she worked on AIDS education stuff back in the day when everybody was dying from it real quickly. But patient zero for that, they found out, speaking of, I didn't even think of this before, but you just made me think of it. We talk about airplanes and people getting on an airplane. That one point, it was such bad luck that the most promiscuous gay guy in the world was a steward or whatever on airplanes. And so he was a flight attendant. And so he was the
oh
worst
man,
person to have, one of the first people to have AIDS, because he was literally all over the world and he was really enjoying himself all over the world.
yeah.
So you think about it, it would have spread. I'm sure it would have spread anyway, but just the thought of, can we pick somebody, a really calm, celibate guy? He found his life partner, and now they're going to live in a farm in Vermont and raise alpacas. Maybe AIDS doesn't get out, whatever, but it's the
Or
one.
maybe longhorn cattle, whatever.
Exactly. As long as you're not flying everywhere in the world. And
Well, because one of the two disturbing statements about this is like the odds aren't zero that another big one lands in our lifetime. Okay, okay, that's bad enough.
I
But
know.
but also I think they did the I saw somebody, that's why I had to throw it in there, put it in bold because it was so annoying. Uh, they made the correlation that it's not the fact about your being over worried or being the quote unquote Karen.
Right.
It's about
Right.
the odds. So it's just like you lock your doors at night. It's not because you expect a burglar, but because the
Right.
risk is real enough.
Right.
So
Play the odds.
yep, there you go. Okay, now here's the self-serving one, and the one that kind of prompted this. Number four out of five is the AI collapse and
Yes.
resultant tech spiral. And again, I remind you, if you want to talk about what AI is doing right now, in my opinion, chomping on its own tail, and it's not going to be that dangerous. Drop back and listen to episode 165.
Yeah.
But the fact is, that's why we bring up, I think, not specifically in the episode, but they say AI has brittle brains because it doesn't think; it just predicts, the next word or pattern, and
Right.
uh, and it's based on the inputs that we as humans have given it.
Right.
So as it keeps deep diving into the same old, redundant data, it's going to start to sound redundant, and people are going to not like lose faith in it, and it's going to kind of fade away. And
Mhm.
we gave a schedule on there. It's going to take about 10 years. It's going to take some jobs. It is,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think that the danger is in the blind trust, because there's so many people that are just like, you know what? There's money to be made by getting quicker answers to these people. I don't care if a human has to do it or not. I want the answers there. I want the money in my pocket. So I trust AI.
Right. Right. Yeah. This one, I'm literally too dumb to understand to even have very much useful to say, because I don't. I mean, the thing that scared me was this is how smart I am. The Terminator movie, when
There you go. Yeah.
it goes sentient and starts blowing everything up or whatever, that seems like, to me, that's what I fear about AI, but I have no idea if that's even the thing to fear, or if that's even, like you say, they don't think right now. So the idea of them becoming sentient or strategizing or something, but it just feels like one of those things where at the speed of development, who's to say what it won't be doing, when the power is quadrupling every 3 years, or what, every 16 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm too dumb to even know how fast that's going. So, but when you start doing that, you can say, how can you rule out that that it starts becoming more self-protective or something where it'll blow up, because people are the virus and now they're the machine. The machine is protecting itself by firing off the nukes or whatever. So again, my most intelligent comment comes from an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie 40 years
Hey,
ago.
hey, you and DT got that in common, I think. But if you look down here, I do have a point down there that says the real risk isn't that AI is going to go rogue. It's like, again, it's going to be the cheap and fast thing.
Yep.
Cutting people out and ignoring the cracks until something big breaks. But I think, for me, of all these notes, the one that kind of resonated was the fact that it's the single points of failure. So if you put too much dependency on the system and then the system fails, then we're kind of effed.
Right. Well, in fact, and I'll mention the only smart, this is a quick one, but I've read a bunch of, I think, a Tom Clancy novel, but I read a bunch of things about the EMP weapons, the electronic magnetic pulse weapons.
Yeah,
And it's something where they just send a giant burst of that kind of energy and it fries all the electronics. And I know we have those now in at least
we do.
small. And so that strikes me as an interesting thing, because if you do that, you could send the society back to the dark ages. If that pulse was big enough and wide enough, all
Yeah.
the areas it goes to, and we don't think about how could we take care of ourselves? How could we grow food? How could we do anything? I mean, we could grow food, but that's not efficiently, So something like that, it just gives me the willies just to think about how dependent we are right now. If all this stuff went away, just the electronic stuff, how long would it take us to get back to anything? I mean, maybe we'd have enough smart people that could rebuild right away, but boy, that's freaky.
Yeah, I don't know who's saying because the older people like you and I, we still know how to garden and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
And well, and my kids kind of do, so I kind of pass that down to them. But I remember there was like one guy who he's like, I want to talk to my future self, and he's like, oh, again, Patton Oswalt. I go through this whole litany of comedians. I'm telling you, but he said he met his former self, and he's like, he's got his Walkman and stuff, and he's all impressed by the fact that he's like, what's that? He's like, oh, that's an iPhone. He's like, it holds all, it holds music on here too. He goes, oh yeah, how much? He goes, every song ever created by anyone is on this. It's like, wow, that's amazing. So I get what you're saying. It's like there's no way we could ever recreate or go back quickly enough that we're not going to lose a few people.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned before we start talking, Nate Bargatze has a great routine about if he went back in the past, if he went back to 1920s, he don't think he could even prove that he was from the future because he'd be going, oh no, we have phones now that we carry around. I go, how do those work? And he goes, I don't know. I think it uses a satellite. And then they go, what's a satellite? And he goes, oh, I shouldn't even have brought that up. It's some kind of metal in space, I think. Anyway,
Yeah, I
and they'd
love it.
ask
We've
him,
been.
who's going to be the president next? And he goes, oh boy, I can see us all being in that boat. You could not recreate any of this stuff. We can't remember anything.
Oh God, we got to stop because I got more. I got more about more Patton Oswalt, more Mitch Hedberg. But okay, this is the one. That one might not be the most plausible near term. Oh, wait, this one is like I think AI one is kind of the most believable because
Okay.
a flip of a trigger or a flip of a switch could
Hmm.
like shut. Okay, but this is the oh come on, like I warned you was coming.
Right.
Um, the last one, and I'm telling you, this is the top five most likely an asteroid or cosmic event.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up you have a resource in your family we could have tapped into.
I do. I've got my youngest is I just got this from a trip that my wife took her over there to England, the University of Exeter in England. She's there for starting a master's in physics with a focus in astronomy. She
Oh,
wants to get
really?
a PhD in astrophysics is the plan. So I wish I would have thought to ask her that, but she's never brought it up. So I'm thinking I'm sort of hoping that my own daughter would, if she would have noticed in one of her lectures or something, hey, there's a 38% chance that,
Yeah,
by the time I'm 100, there's going to be. So I wish we could have asked her that because this
I
feels
hope
like
so.
this feels like an Old Testament. It's just God's will thing. There's a rock coming from space and it's going to hit your planet. And what can you do? But the dart answer, talk about that for a second. The dart thing is our best hope, it sounds like, or something like that.
Oh yeah, the DART that was uh God, what is it? It's called? Well, the DART project that was NASA did that I think as recently as 3 years ago.
Mhm.
They fired something I think a missile to bump an asteroid off target, but
Right.
that was a friendly and it worked. It knocked it 32 minutes off target. I'm just recalling this off from memory, so I could be wrong, but it worked. But the point is that was like a friendly satellite.
Right.
We
Right.
but like you were saying, I have one thing that I keep wondering. Maybe you can ask your daughter next time you get a chance. We're just basically rocketing through space. Why don't we get hit all the time? Why don't I mean I'm sure little ones probably happen, but
Yeah.
and they're both big ones. Like they talk about the Tunguska event
Yeah.
from 1908 over Siberia. And
Mhm.
that was a comet exploding in atmosphere, and it flattened 800 square miles of forest. No big deal. But there's the other one, and I'm pronouncing this wrong, so I'm just going to pronounce. I'm going to tell you phonetically. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Just the Chicxulub crater. But that was in the Yucatan Peninsula, and they say like 66 million years ago, and that's what they say wiped out the dinosaurs. So
Right.
this is a big deal. They're saying it's
Yeah.
like low odds, but a pretty
Yeah.
big punch if it happens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think my understanding is that everything under a certain size burns up in the atmosphere. So we're constantly being pelted by small stuff, but the problem is how small does it get? So like the thing that hit in 1908, how big was that when it hit the atmosphere? How big was it left? Because the physics are
Yeah, that's true.
so scary that it can be fairly small, but if it hits going that fast, it does that kind of damage. So I kind of think that too. I sort of feel like that's why I stick my finger in my ears and sing a song to myself. So
Wow, wow, wow,
I don't
wow.
want to know. I don't want to know how.
Well, didn't we get saved like by some of that, like when Skylab broke apart and some of it kind of burned up, but some did make it through.
Yeah, that's right. And then you hope that it hits in the ocean, that most of the earth is ocean, so you're hoping it doesn't hit in,
Yeah,
downtown New York City or
like
something.
Iowa. Like, oh, what?
Exactly.
I love corn. But there's other things like they say solar tantrums. And I looked into this a little bit because they're saying they're recalling data from 1859. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes. How much would they
We were
measure?
riding horses and stuff. There's nobody collecting data about solar tantrums or solar flares, but they were in England.
Right.
I guess this Carrington guy had a lab he set up in England in the mid 18 or the early 1850s. So by 1859, he was recording enough data that he was recording solar flares. They called
Yeah.
it the Carrington event. So, and I've seen that, like we said before. I mean, when my son and I went to Scotland, and he had been going to school there for a while, so he knew Edinburgh. Edinburgh. I got to see I'm rolling like I lived there. He lived in Edinburgh for a while, and but he's like, we got to go check out the cemetery. It's so cool. But some of the the tombstones like for 1500, and it's like this guy was well known for having started a library. I'm like, I'll be damned, 1500. This guy's building a library.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So they 1859, they might have.
Right. Well, and that's what I've heard that I mean, that's to take it back to climate change too, that solar activity is supposed to have had this huge impact. So they said there was like a little medieval warming period for 150 years, and then there was a mini ice age for a while, and that people were skating on the Thames in London, ice skating in I don't know what even century that was, but within the last 500 years anyway. So they were saying that a lot they suspect now that the sun does have periods of more activity and less, and that has a huge impact on our climate naturally. So that's one thing that makes me skeptical when all the climate change people are looking at. They're usually looking at things that have a political or human impact, which makes sense. If we're pouring coal into the atmosphere or whatever, we should. But if you don't even talk about the single biggest effect on the climate, it probably because why what can we do about it? We have to
Yeah,
stop the sun from turning into more active periods. So since there's nothing we can do about it, my suspicion is we don't talk about it because we can't do anything about it. And yet that skews our understanding of, what should we do about climate change when if the solar flare increases by 10% solar activity, then that's going to way outweigh all the steps we
yeah.
can take on Earth. It's kind of, but that's
You just hope
depressing too.
like some dumbass doesn't see like the fact that we create a nuclear winter as a resolution for the concerns about the climate change. There you
Right.
go.
Right.
Just a little one.
Enough coal in the clouds actually makes it cooler here. Let's try and figure a balance between those.
Okay, Professor, we're going to go into the final rankings now, and
Yes.
it kind of makes me happy because I think you read this, but still, you put yourself out there for the greater good, and you doubted climate change being a big concern, but that comes in at number one,
Hmm.
the greatest concern because they say it's kind of near term, and we're
Hmm.
already having heat waves, rising seas, and droughts. I'm sure people are like listening to this. If you gotten this far, thank you, by the way. And please stick around. We're almost done. But people are thinking like, yeah, if you believe in it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you the data and the resources I have from the United Nations. If you ask me at mitchwonders.com, shoot me an email. I'll be glad to send it to you. But what you can do to prepare yourself, and I'm going to tell you, all these preparations are kind of lame. So brace yourself. But harden your home turf, uh, food, water, energy, and vote with your head, not with your heart.
There you go.
That's straight like by party. Don't if you see
That's
the other
right.
party presenting something that
Yeah.
you think is going to be beneficial, lean toward that. What the hell?
Yeah.
But you were spot on about number two, the global pandemic
Hmm.
comes in at a robust number two.
Hmm.
So that's where they say that was like COVID was a rehearsal, not the main
Yeah.
act.
Yeah. Well, and we handled it so badly too that that's a bad sign when we screwed up the rehearsal so much, because they say that, I mean, I remember that one of the things I read from the epidemiologist was saying that every other pandemic in the world has been the smart strategy was you try and isolate the sick people because the rest of society has to go on. You still have to get the crops in the field and whatever else. And so you would have a leper colony. You wouldn't make all of Paris a leper colony. Everybody has to stay inside for 6 months. you had to try to isolate them. And we sort of went the other way where there was a small part of the population that was really at risk, the obese and, over 65 and all the
Yeah.
conditions. So that's kind of scary to me because what good would that be in a plague? It's a plague is not just going to hit 65 or over, or whatever new super flu. So that's kind of but to me, the depressing part is we didn't do that well with the rehearsal, man. What are we going to do with the real event? That's
Yeah, hopefully we learned enough. I mean, like to create that buffer. I mean, then you hear like all, you know, and it's been a while since we said these two words together, and I'm proud of us for it. But social media didn't help a damn thing because
no.
somebody plants a seed of dissent or
Yep.
doubt. They're like, I'm not taking any vaccines then. Whatever.
Right
But
away,
here's
the camps fighting about that.
here's your preparation. You ready? Keep
Yep.
your basics stockpiled. Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Stay current on shots if you don't
Yep.
mind, and wash your damn hands. That's it.
Yes.
It's
Yes. Well, I wanted to say something too. When I saw that list, I thought one of the most important things is, and some people talked about it during COVID, but if you dropped a bunch of weight and were generally healthier, your chances of succumbing were a lot less. And I think a lot of the times that doesn't get emphasized because it feels like shaming, especially in America where most of us are fatter than we should be. And,
yep, yep.
so it's so, but I mean, like you say, wash your hands, the little simple things that people have known for a long time. Wash your hands, keep your cardio in shape, keep down to the out of the morbid obesity category, and you're going to be a lot better off with almost every physical challenge except something like the plague that's super.
Yeah, just live your life because you're dying. So,
Yep, there you go.
all right, number three, nuclear exchange. For
Mhm.
me, I thought that was number one. I
Yeah.
admit I was wrong, but the stockpile still exists. The treaties are shaky, and
Mhm.
miscalculation, or like we were saying, somebody just getting just a wild hair up their ass. And
Yep.
don't say because he might listen to this episode. I know what you're saying. Don't say it by name because he'll target my house. But I know what you're saying. But there's always okay. Here's the but it gets a little bit. No, this gets worse. The prep, what you can do, know the basics, uh, like nuclear fallout and supplies. Basically, these are all like saying keep your supplies up to date. And I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I really didn't know the extent of COVID until I went to the local Walmart and there was one
Mhm.
4-pack of toilet paper on the shelf. I'm like, the
Yeah.
hell is going on? I swear, I didn't know.
I thought too, it's not an explosive diarrhea disease where you would
Yeah,
immediately go to toilet paper. It seems so strange that that would
I'm
be
gonna have
the.
to burn a mule. Yeah. Like I told all my friends, as long as I don't run out of Chicago Cubs t-shirts from back in the day and laundry soap, I'm fine.
Go.
Okay, now number four, and I think the last two are kind of like we were saying, is AI collapse. It's not number five, so I'm surprised. There's still a little bit,
Yep.
but the note is it's not going to be killer robots,
Right.
Professor, but more like
Schwarzenegger told me different, buddy. I
more.
put my faith in Arnold.
See, I'm going to wake up screaming tonight and see like two red dots and like it's but brittle systems failing when trusted too much. Yeah, I get that. That's
Yep.
but this is better though. This is better prep. Your prep is keep some skills. I don't know what they mean by that, but it probably like know how to fix your car, know how to grow a green pepper in the garden,
Yep.
stuff like that. And keep some paper backups of documents that you might need, or
Mhm.
paper backups. You think they're talking about cash?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Keep
good work.
keep some damn cash, and don't hand every key to a machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
But that's easy for you and I to say, but like people like Wells Fargo or give me another like I don't know
Yeah, Chase
let's just,
Manhattan.
I was gonna say Chase Manhattan, but we're staying with the banks. How about Charles Schwab or whatever the big people that can make
Yep.
money by handing all those keys off to a
Right.
machine?
Right.
There, that's what. So I guess
Yep.
what we're saying is keep some cash.
There you go. There you go.
All right, dead last, and still, if you have a chance, talk to your daughter. Is the as the asteroid or cosmic event? It's rare but possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll call you'll be one of the first people I call if she tells me.
Well, if
So
we still can,
I don't know what we're going to do anyway when that happens, but hopefully they can
because
spot. The big question I had for her was how far can we spot it? I mean, I know they're doing calculations with computers and stuff. So would it be light years away before you realize that one might get here? So that's the
oh,
important
good.
thing. if we got 3 days, we're all screwed anyway. Just that's when you get the bourbon and
Yeah, because idiot that you are, when you said how far away can we see it, I saw like the cartoon, like Elmer Fudd running away because he sees a rock in the sky. But but it's I mean that's a joke, but a rock or a solar flare could knock down a power grid, or
yeah,
like I say, it flattened 800 acres of trees or miles of trees. There
yeah.
could be a power grid, or let's say a city in there.
Yep.
I mean, but the point is, I think, if you want to wrap it all up, nukes, pandemics, climate, computers getting dumber, a rock from the sky, all the boogeymen that folks say might end the world. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Because we've seen, we joked about the boogeyman from the 1920s. We talked about the boogeyman from the space race, and you talked about the boogeyman from climate change. Potentially not, it's going to fizzle out and not be that big a deal. So don't let it. It's not here to scare you, but it's just like me thinking about it and kind of offering a little prep to you, and whatever you get out of this, good. But whatever you
Well,
do, I mean, if nothing else, get out and enjoy while you can.
yeah, I thought of kind of a positive ending thought too was, don't borrow worry from the future. Don't try to find more things to worry about. And part of it is if you look back at what did we worry about for, we're old enough now that, I mean, we look like we're in our 20s, but we're in our 60s.
Yeah, thanks for telling
Um,
people that.
and if you look back, the stuff that people were afraid of, there was an ice age coming before the global warming was coming. That was in the 70s, and magazines and scientists and stuff talking about that. Acid rain was going to kill all the crops and stuff. Remember the ozone layer
Yep.
the ozone hole was getting bigger and bigger, and I never heard of it again. I realized 30 or 40 years later, what happened to it must have closed up because we're all not dead or whatever. The population bomb, we were going to all be having massive famines because of population. Nukes were going to kill us. The oil was almost gone, and we've got more years of oil supply now than we had back. So a lot of that stuff is they're guessing about things, and there's probably money in guessing too. There's headlines, and you can make great movies out of, there. I love The Stand, that Stephen King novel with the scary flu getting out at the beginning, and how many disaster movies have we seen with the, flooding and all that stuff. So really, we should don't borrow worry from the future. Live your life now, and especially if some of them, if you can't do anything about them anyway, then what good does it do to
Yeah,
panic about?
well, like you point out more than once, we'll adapt. There's a very fair chance that we'll adapt. And when I say we, honestly, I accidentally had a little bit of patriotic pride because we as Americans, like, we're not taking it. We'll adapt. We'll, like you say, we joked about pulling the boner docs after what they're working on, literally what they were working on, probably. But hey, this one works. Look at this. What's that one movie? It's Purple Steel. A cat couldn't scratch it. But I digress. See, we're not taking this seriously. We just went through the five most and the top one, in order. So
We're still
take a
laughing.
take a lesson from both of us, because
That's
not
right.
not enough people do. Ooh, that's gonna be a good visual. Not enough people. But hey, Professor, it's been fun. I mean, I knew it would be a giggle, and I appreciate you, like I say, finding time to do this in the early evening so I could have a cool one while we're doing it. Hey, that didn't hurt either.
No,
But until next time, my friend, we'll come up with I'll come up with like a less like dismal.
apocalyptic,
Yeah,
literally apocalyptic topic.
literally everything else has to be less like
Well, let's start thinking about what will we find the 5 things for a future episode, 5 things that'll make life much better in the next 100 years or something. How about
yeah,
that?
something. Yeah, we can do that, even if it's like pie in the sky stuff, which literally would make life better if there was pie in the sky.
Falling gently into your arm
Yeah,
instead of a meteor. Why does it have to be a meteor? Why can't it be pie?
I got meringued. I got meringued.
It was delicious.
All right, Professor. We'll talk to you next time, man.
Yep. See ya.